Hello, my name is Matthew Phillips. I'm the Chief of the Legal Officer Corps, but most importantly, I'm a member of the North Carolina Wing. So I'm really glad to be here with you for the North Carolina Wing Conference. I appreciate everybody's willingness to do this in a little bit different way that we can manage during COVID, and really glad I had the chance to be with you. If you have a chance to chat or ask questions in the chat window, I'll do my best to stay with you and answer those questions as we go along. Our topic today is leading through duty assignments and specialty tracks. First, let me introduce myself. My secret identity out in the normal world is as a business law and ethics professor at Wake Forest University. I'm married, have two great kids, one of them who is helping me tape the video today. I've been a private pilot for 14 years. I had an instrument rating for 10 of those years, and so I fly with family and do angel flights with a colleague sometimes. I grew up in Charlotte. I've actually lived in the geographic bounds of the North Carolina Wing for my entire life. Inside Civil Air Patrol, I serve as the Chief of the Legal Officer Corps. That's the person at the national staff who manages the group of legal officers serving around the country. We have at least one legal officer in every wing, at least one legal officer in every region, and in many places we're very lucky to have a couple of people serving and backing each other up. Those legal officers represent every specialty of law, from criminal to real estate to taxation to contract law. And it's a real pleasure to work with so many great and dedicated professionals, just like I have the chance to do with you all here in the wing. My previous roles include work at the Mid-Atlantic region, serving in the legal officer position, and of course here in the North Carolina Wing in that position for several years. Because I live in Group 4, I had the chance to be the Group 4 commander before moving to the national headquarters. I also was the North Carolina Wing Chief of Staff for a brief stint, and I've had deputy commander and commander service across 3 squadrons in the state. My favorite work in CAP, don't tell any of the other legal officers, but my favorite work is flying. I particularly love the G1000 182s here in North Carolina. I'm a mission pilot, and so our AOB missions are some of my favorite ones. CAP has been a great chance for me to develop myself as a professional. I'm a graduate of the Squadron Officer School, Air Command and Staff College, and Air War College through Air University, which of course was an opportunity afforded by CAP. Here's what I want to try to do with you today. This is a module out of Level 2 in the Education and Training Program, right? Duty assignments and specialty tracks. If you think back to your experience of Level 2, that's when you would have been engaging with a new specialty track. But today we want to also overlay some thinking about how to lead others who are at that stage. So if you're here today and you don't already have credit for ENT Level 2 for this particular module, I'll be sure to enter that credit for you. The team for the Wing Conference will help me get all those names. And in keeping with that, right, we have some education and training objectives. We want to explore specialty track information, explore and discuss duty assignments and how they link to specialty tracks, describe the rating levels inside the specialty tracks, and discuss how to choose professional development opportunities in CAP. And perhaps most importantly, once you've chosen that opportunity, we'll talk about how to get the right resources to do it. But again, we're also doing a conference session here that's about leadership, not just selecting those tracks. And so we want to engage with some of the myths that make a successful ENT environment difficult, reflect on the integration of members into functional units, and outline a process for assigning and supporting specialty tracks. This is a good place to be if you are a rank and file member who's brand new and trying to decide how you're going to serve in CAP. This is a good place to be if you are a squadron commander and trying to figure out how to organize your unit. And this is a good place to be if you're thinking about how to lead people to develop at whatever level of Civil Air Patrol you find yourself. As we begin our thinking about the myths that can make education and training difficult, the first myth is that volunteers don't want to work hard. I love this picture because actually these volunteers are super committed. One's now a squadron commander. The reality is everyone in your squadron joined because they want to serve. No one comes to CAP and thinks, you know, I really hope this is an organization where I can stand in the background and not do anything. It's easier to just sit at home and watch TV. Anyone who comes to Civil Air Patrol wants to serve. And so the idea that we're only dealing with volunteers, only so much work you can get them to do, doesn't really make sense. A lot of education and training, and especially track development, is about connecting people to the missions that they really want and feel able to perform. The reason that this is a myth is that we, as leaders in Civil Air Patrol, owe it to our members to create clear job descriptions and to create regular rotation and succession patterns. That, I bet if we were live, there'd be a couple laughs around regular succession and rotation patterns, because I bet, like me, you, the kind of people who show up for a wing conference, feel like you're doing 4 or 5 jobs and there's no idea that you could ever let one of those jobs go, right? So as leaders, we're supposed to give others opportunities to step into those roles and be sure that everyone always knows and feels equipped for the job they're doing. Willingness to serve is directly correlated with the importance of the objective. So an important part of leadership in getting volunteers to work is drawing the lines between what we're being asked to do and our important mission for America. That may sound easy. It actually can be pretty complicated, but let me take an example. Perhaps before you've ridden in a CAP van and you know that at the beginning of the day you're supposed to fill out a CAP Form 73 about that van that has like about 18 questions. Does the van's backup alarm work? Does the van's horn work? Does the van have washer fluid? Does the van have gasoline? Does the van have proper tire pressure? And it takes about 5 steps in that checklist for most people to get tired and not want to go anywhere in the van anymore, because it's a little tedious. Here's the deal. Let me tell you, as one of our lawyers, part of the reason we do that checklist is that it keeps us safe. We have very, very few vehicle incidents. Because we're carefully checking those vehicles before we use them every day, we don't have tire blowouts. We don't have people try to honk the horn to stop an emergency and find out it doesn't work. We don't have people back up into things because they checked to be sure that the reverse alarm was working. And so that means that our insurance claim rate is pretty low for an organization like this. That enables us as a broader organization to afford the good insurance that keeps us safe while operating, and so we're able to field a fleet of vehicles and airplanes and a lot of safe and protected people in order to do our missions. If we don't check vehicles and they get into accidents more often and our claim rate goes up, we won't be able to afford the insurance that keeps us operating. So doing that form is an important part of keeping the Civil Air Patrol able to serve the country. All right. As you pay attention, what I just did was draw a line between the vehicle checklist and serving America. If I can do that, then whatever you are asking volunteers to do, you can draw a line between that and the important missions of Civil Air Patrol. If the vehicle checklist is important, surely anything that we do is. The second myth is that our core values are just a nice jumble of words for brochures. Our core values are actually inherited from the Air Force, and they are one of our organization's distinctive features. They are a thing we get to steward, kind of like the uniform, right? As members of the Air Force Auxiliary, we inherit the Air Force's core values, and we augment them for our special place. Years ago, I was asked with another officer to help a new squadron that was setting up, and we went to that squadron and tried to be good mentors. We found that one of the best pieces of wisdom actually came from the squadron and not from us. And that was that after doing all the materials for level 1 and what we used to call the officer basic course, a couple of them said, hey, these core values are really great, so we want to put them on the wall, and we think that anything we as a squadron do ought to reflect at least one of those core values, or we shouldn't be doing it. The other senior officer and I who'd been sent to mentor this group looked at each other and like, wow, I don't know that I've ever heard a group of Civil Air Patrol officers talk about the core values. So we learned something really important from them. They are a gift. They are something to feel really proud of and that can shape almost any discussion, particularly discussions about the way that we serve in our various duty assignments. Pursuing excellence means that anything we do should be done in accordance with those core values. Martin Luther King Jr. said that all labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. So anything that we're going to do as an organization is important enough to do with integrity, to do with an eye toward volunteer service, to do with excellence, and to do with a lot of respect for each other, the people we serve, and the communities in which we work. The next myth is that if people don't want to progress, that's up to them. If you've ever worked in a squadron where you tried to talk about education and training and how important it is to do the next thing, you might have had a member say to you something like, "That's okay. I'm just here because I like to fly," or "I'm just here because I want to walk in the woods with the ground team. I don't really care about rank. I don't care about ribbons. I don't care about education and training." I think sometimes we have to recognize this, our members say that from a place of nobility and humility, right? They don't want to seem like they're just chasing ribbons. I totally get that, and I respect it. But this is an organization that follows a military structure in which rank is important. And here's the most critical reason why. If cadets see senior members saying, "I just want to do the work, I don't care about progressing," then cadets will learn that behavior from senior members and they won't care about progressing. While it's possible to be a CAP senior member as a second lieutenant for 40 years, the cadet program really doesn't work without forward momentum. Cadets need to be promoting. That's how they are exposed to the various important lessons that CAP has to offer. And so we need for our senior members to be modeling an interest in progression for those cadets. It's also important, by the way, for cadets to learn from senior members that there is always more we can learn and that all work is worth doing really well. The pictures on the slide here are of friends from a squadron I used to serve. If you look at the top left-hand picture, you can see a cadet having rank pinned on by his mother and father. And if you look at the lower picture, you'll see that although it's a couple years later, that same cadet is pinning rank onto his father's shoulder. His father started out not really all that interested in the program, just sort of dropping off as cadet, and then realized, I want my son, and that's his daughter there, I want both of my kids to see me progressing so that they'll take their own personal development really seriously. I've got another quote for you here. Winston Churchill said, "To each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for that which would have been their finest hour." That's what's happening in the education and training program. We know we're going to need you. Maybe when we're having an SUI, maybe when there's a disaster relief mission, maybe when there's a plane stuck somewhere, maybe when there's a missing person, maybe when there's a cadet who has been struggling with how to master aerospace education or how to lead in a difficult situation. We need you to be trained for that moment when it comes. So let's back up a little bit to the material for the underlying Level 2 module that we're trying to do today. You may know some of this already, but I want us to be thinking about not only what this material could mean for us, but how we can use it to lead others. So let's talk about specialty tracks and duty assignments. Perhaps obviously you can have a duty assignment without specialty track training. I hear that there might be some places in CAP when people are doing jobs they don't feel equipped for. We don't want that to be the case, but of course it happens sometimes. But think about the problems there. Jobs that don't make sense are not fun to do. And so a specialty track offers the gift of contextualizing the work that someone's doing in a way that makes it easier for them to do it enthusiastically and very effectively. Second, even subject matter experts benefit from CAP-specific training. I was already a member of the bar. I was a practicing attorney when I joined Civil Air Patrol. In fact, I was a law professor when I joined Civil Air Patrol. But I've learned a lot about how the law affects this organization while inside it. So even subject matter experts can learn from their CAP-specific training. Third, a duty assignment without a specialty track might work on an interim or emergency basis. But I bet like me you've noticed that interim and temporary assignments have a way of becoming permanent in CAP. So as soon as you are in a duty position, start working on the specialty track, even if it's just a short-term thing. You can also have a specialty track without a duty assignment. I can imagine some reasons you might do that. You want to learn about a subject area, but someone's already in that spot in the squadron. Keep in mind, though, that if you're doing the training without the practical advantage of a duty assignment, then there is no connection between theory and practice. You can't turn around and apply what you've been learning, and for most of us, that makes it hard to concentrate on learning. In a situation where you are learning but not acting in that duty position, there's little value being created for the member or for CAP. So we really want people to be serving in the same roles that they're training for. It's that overlap between the specialty track and the duty assignment where we get long-term sustainability and success. Our specialty tracks are all broken into 3 ratings: technician, senior, and master. There are a couple of different ingredients in progression. The one that's consistent across every single specialty track is time in grade. This varies among specialty tracks. It's usually like about 6 months before technician, about a year before senior, and maybe 18 months or 2 years before master. So that most of our specialty tracks you can progress all the way through in about 2.5 or 3 years. Each level also has knowledge requirements, an awareness and understanding of specific CAP regulations, pamphlets, and forms that pertain to that subject area. So if you're in operations, you need to know the operations regs, the forms that we fill out regularly to initiate missions or to qualify new aircrew, the pamphlets that tell us the practical side of how to do a search pattern, and so forth. Each one of these 3 also has what we'll call academic requirements: CAP courses or colleges, many of them available through the various education and training programs that you use in order to progress. For example, inspectors general do an inspector general training course before they can be technicians, and they have to go to the National Inspector General College before they can move into the master rating of the track. Same is true for lawyers, same is true for several others, safety, operations, etc. Finally, all of these have service requirements. We want to keep people in that overlap between specialty track and duty assignment, the theory and the practice of what we do. And so in order to progress, particular duty positions or experiences need to be checked off. For public affairs, for example, you have to give a public presentation before you can move up. What we're doing right now would qualify for that. Now, how do you locate specialty track pamphlets? How do you find the ways that you can progress in your own track? I'm going to show you some screen captures from the national website, which is gocivilairpatrol.com. As we go through this, I want you to notice that we have some newer pamphlets and some older pamphlets. Pretty obviously, I suppose, we're in the process of sort of revamping all of those older 200 series pamphlets into 40 series pamphlets. So you'll go to gocivilairpatrol.com or capmembers.com if you're an old guy like me and that's how you got used to typing it in. You'll click on the members button at the top right there. That will open the publication library. You'll click on publication library. That'll open another menu where you'll see the pamphlets button. When you click on pamphlets, that takes you off this web page to a new one. And if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see these 40 series pamphlets. These are the ones that have already been redone in the past couple of years, usually because there was a significant change in those specialty tracks. And so you can see Inspector General, Professional Development Officer is now called Education and Training Officer, Chaplain Corps, Historian, and Safety Officer. If you scroll down a little farther, you can see the 200 series pamphlet. Still a lot here. Some of those have been updated recently. They're all in current use. They just haven't been moved over to that new 40 series yet. So you'd want to be familiar with these as well if you're helping to lead new members or if you're looking for your own new information. I would also encourage you, one of the things that I always do with new members, actually they don't let me talk to new members anymore. I don't know why they won't let me. One of the things I used to tell new members back when I was allowed to talk to them is that you should go to the website and look through these pamphlets and look at any position that interests you and think about what CAP believes that position is supposed to be good at. It might give you an idea about how to choose a specialty track. The most important things in those pamphlets, I think, are the training checklists. These are at the end of most of these pamphlets, and there's one each for technician, senior, and master. And if you look at that checklist, it's really easy to go through and see where the various requirements are for each level and to make some notations about when they were done, perhaps to have someone sign off so that a commander can see evidence that you've completed this when it's time to enter the next specialty track level. The Education and Training Group at National Headquarters is working on an electronic form of this that would be much more like the Skeeters that we do for operational advancement or the sort of course sign-offs that you've seen in professional development levels through Axis. So we may not need these for a long time, but keep an eye on them because even if you're marking off things electronically, I think it'll be really helpful for lots of members to be able to look back to this paper and keep that around, keep that on hand with them. I want you to think about whether and how you've been assigned to a specialty track and or a duty position, and how did that happen? Obviously, it's hard for us to have a live discussion today. You might insert your answer in the chat box below and help some others think about the way that you found that duty position. I particularly want you to reflect on, was it a sort of instrumental process where your squadron commander told you, or you told your squadron commander, hey, I need to promote in 6 months, and so I think I need to be in a specialty track, let's find one to put me in? Was it an intentional choice where you said, hey, I've been looking around the people here and I'd really like to be doing that job. Can I help out with that? How do I learn how to do it? Either's okay. I'll freely admit to you that some of the duty positions I've had over the years in CAP, I pointed at it and said, I really want to learn how to do that. How can I do it the best way? And some of the duty positions I've had over the years got thrust on me because there was no one else to do it, and so the specialty track was a begrudging reference. Obviously, the more intention we can put behind it, the better. And the more that we as leaders in CAP can help people see the ways that they can learn and do important new things for the organization, the better. All right? So how do we choose a specialty track? First, what are some reasons to choose a specialty track or a duty position? I think that one obvious thing is, I want to do that job. Usually we want to do a job because we feel already like we might be good at it. When I first joined CAP, I knew that I wanted to be a legal officer. Maybe that's a little easier for me than for some people because I was already trained as a lawyer and that was an obvious volunteer kind of value I could add. But as I looked around, I also noticed that professional development was a function that's really important for us in CAP. We now call it education and training. And I wanted to do that too. At the time, I had just taught a couple of classes at a university level and I was really excited about developing as a professor. And so education was a pretty clear priority for me. So among the reasons might be I already know I'm good at that thing, or I'm interested in that thing and I want to get better. Think about what specialty tracks you did choose and why that one. Also keep in mind that while I wouldn't want for your squadron commander to hear me say you can always give up a duty position and move to something new, you can always add another duty position or another specialty track. It's never too late to learn how to do something new. I have 3 master ratings, I believe. I also have 2 technician ratings because I've started over a couple of, well, not started over, but I've started a couple of new specialty tracks. There's no reason if a colonel can be unrated or technician rated in a couple of areas that you can't pick some new things to begin studying too. Think also about which duty positions you've chosen and why. A lot of times duty positions get chosen because the squadron needs something. I totally understand that, and we have to staff our squadrons. But I also want to empower you to talk with people about your interests and to say maybe sort of a trade-off. I'm happy to keep this duty position that's really important for the squadron, but I also want to learn about this new thing. Can you help me do that? Here's a suggestion for you when you find yourself in opportunities with new members, or maybe for yourself. This is what I've typically counseled newer members in as a squadron commander and deputy commander myself. I would suggest that as a new member, you take on 2 specialty tracks and the 2 associated duty positions. The first one, let's call a leadership track. This is where you'd leverage skills and experience you already have. For me, this was the legal officer track. For a teacher, this might be the aerospace education track. For an experienced pilot, this might be operations, or for a flight instructor, it might be STANIVAL. Whatever's appropriate for you. Leverage skills and experience you already have in an area that you know you're pretty good at. This also helps you to connect quickly with colleagues beyond the squadron. Because if, for example, you're a journalist or an avid photographer and you join the public affairs track immediately, then you're already going to be conversant in that area, and so you can connect with the wing PAO pretty easily because you understand how that world works. This also can be a way to find your footing in the organization and to broaden your existing knowledge, right? If you are operating from a position of comfort about your role, then that makes it easier to figure out where you fit in the organization because at least you know your work, even if you don't know the context yet. The second track we'll call a learning track. take a lifetime learning approach and pick something you want to learn more about. The great thing about this is that, of course you get to learn stuff, but it also gives you a place to model humility and development for other senior members and for cadets. One of my favorite things to see is when a really experienced, really polished professional senior member comes into a squadron. I've seen this happen several times with people who had advanced rank because of military experience or profession. They come into the squadron and they say, I really want to learn operations. That's not who I am. I don't have any experience with that. I want to learn that. And they'll sit with cadets and get advice about how operations works in CAP. Or share with their colleagues their eagerness to learn something new. And I got to tell you, when a pretty seasoned Army Lieutenant Colonel sits down with a 16-year-old cadet and says, "Can you help me understand how ground teams work?" That is a big day for that cadet and a super important formative experience. So modeling that humility and interest in continuing development is super important. The learning track also might be the way that you get to meet a key need for your squadron. Because of the willingness to say, hey, I don't know a lot about that area, but I see the squadron needs it. I know that Civil Air Patrol can give me the resources to learn about this new thing, so I'm game for it. Let's do it. I'd actually even suggest that you repeat this pattern again after you've been around for a little while. Maybe when you get to level 3 or when you pin on your 5th-year membership pin, it's time to say, hey, you know what? I've been doing these 2 roles the whole time. I've got my leadership track. Maybe actually the thing that started as my learning track has become my leadership track now where I'm really experienced. I want to add something new. And I've found a great successor for one of my roles. I'm going to let my successor take over what used to be my leadership track. Right? That keeps this experience fresh and fun for all of us. I want to present a couple of case studies. Again, since we're not live, this is going to be a little bit more difficult, but I think we can gain from it. Case study alpha is senior member Greg Odell. Let me say quickly, I pulled these pictures from one of the national conference photo booths. So this person is not named Greg Odell. I don't actually even know where he is in the Civil Air Patrol. I'm thankful to him for his service. But let's imagine that senior member Odell, a new part of CAP, is a sales representative for a medical software company. He's an aviation enthusiast, like a lot of us who show up at CAP. He has a drone, but no airplane flying time or experience. He's active on his neighborhood condo board, and he has enlisted experience in the Army, served for 6 years. So if Mr. Odell comes to the squadron and says, hey, what's this deal with like specialty tracks and duty assignments? What am I supposed to do? Where might we want to plug him in? One possibility is that he needs to be involved in operations. Let's get him up in an airplane. He cares about aviation, certainly, so let's train him as a mission scanner. That's an aircrew position, though, and not a specialty track. It might be that he has some real potential in operations, though, because of his drone expertise. That's a growing mission for us and one we need people who know about already. He's active on his neighborhood condo board. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to be on an HOA or condo board or something like that. That usually means a person has some pretty serious understanding of financial management. So maybe a good finance officer or a finance committee member. He's got enlisted experience in the Army. I have seen a lot of former enlisted military veterans be incredibly successful in the cadet program. Because they instinctively know drill and ceremonies. They instinctively know the ways to develop leadership, especially if it was a pretty senior enlisted, especially if his service was as a pretty senior enlisted officer. By the way, as a leader in CAP, let me suggest that enlisted experience means we might want to connect him with our command chief and be sure that senior member Odell knows about the opportunity for NCO service in the Civil Air Patrol. Finally, he's a sales representative for a medical software company. Here in North Carolina Wing, we have pretty good experience of a really high-powered sales representative and sales executive, Colonel Jason Bailey, who's one of the most successful and productive CAP members I know. So that suggests to me this might be someone who's really good at connecting with people and who could make a great leader. Who could make a great salesman for getting other people involved in the missions we have at Civil Air Patrol. There's no wrong answer about how to connect him. And I think, here's a good reminder, the best first thing to do is to say, hey Greg, how do you want to serve in CAP? We can suggest some things about that leadership track, the one that maybe he takes on out of his expertise, but lots of opportunities for him to take on a learning track as well, and we should be really enthusiastic about that. Here's my next case study, Captain Mariah Savageau. Again, I picked a picture and used a random name generator, so I'm not trying to tell you about a real member in CAP. Captain Savageau is a recent college graduate with a degree in political science. She was a Spats cadet in the Florida wing, and then she moved here to North Carolina wing for a job after her college graduation. She loved orientation rides as a cadet and recently started flight training at the local airport. Loves to work with people, and has a lot of energy for outdoor-oriented tasks. So where should we plug in Captain Savageau? First of all, the quickest answer I typically hear, especially for a former Spats cadet, is cadet programs. I'm going to suggest to you that is not the right place for Captain Savageau to be right away. A recent college graduate is still pretty young, pretty close to the age of our cadets. And as a legal officer, I can tell you that having cadets and very young adults together sometimes makes things difficult for a collection of reasons. Perhaps the most important one is that it's hard to learn from someone who is so close in time to you. So I'd really like for her to stay not out of, but to stay adjacent to cadet programs for a little while, and us not to presume that because she's a young and successful officer that she should automatically be with cadets. At the same time, she's been really successful, and so I'd like cadets to see enough of her that she's a mentor to them. So I'm probably not going to suggest cadet programs for Captain Savageau. She's a recent college graduate with a degree in political science. That might indicate that she's interested in things like public affairs, and or this is a duty position and not a specialty track. She might be interested in government relations, which is something that in my experience every wing and region is always looking for more people to do. If she loved O-rides as a cadet, she might make a great operations officer. We're also, again, this is a duty position. We're always looking for someone to organize O-rides, which is a really detailed and kind of sophisticated problem to solve. Loves to work with people, has a lot of energy for outdoor-oriented tasks. Again, that sounds like someone who's gifted for operations. Now, if you approach someone who's a recent college graduate in poli-sci and say, we really think you'd make a great operations officer, that may sound strange, right? She might not feel as equipped for that. And so it's important for leaders in CAP to be able to point out why that fits, not just that you think it might. Lots of good other possibilities too. Again, there's no wrong answer for where Captain Savageau should be serving, but I'd want any of us to be able to present some options to her and to present some ideas for her to think about. Next, this picture is actually of my colleague, Major Ann Formanek, who's the legal officer at the Mid-Atlantic region, but for this case study, I named her Themba McGowan. Ms. McGowan is a lawyer for a federal agency office in Greensboro. She was born in South Africa and attended law school in Maryland before moving to North Carolina. She mentioned connections to a local Air Force base for orientation rides, so she has some military connections. She's got a private pilot certificate, no BFR or active medical. And she has a passion for photography and mentioned she was surprised when she was looking for a unit that the website hadn't been updated recently. Oh my God, someone who wants to do the website, let's put them in public affairs. Great, we're done. Public affairs and websites in general are often a pretty tough area, and so that would be something we'd love for her to do, I bet. If she's a lawyer, this duty position is kind of unique. In the Mid-Atlantic region, we don't actually assign lawyers to individual units. We don't assign legal officers to individual units. But as the Chief of the Legal Officer Corps, please, if a lawyer shows up at your squadron, contact the wing legal officer and get that lawyer connected for service in the Legal Officer Corps. We won't take them away from your squadron. For years, I was a member of the Winston-Salem Squadron and then the Sugar Valley Composite Squadron while serving as a legal officer at the wing and region levels, but I also still flew planes, still helped with cadets, still served as a deputy commander, still served as professional development, still served in logistics. So we won't take them away from your squadron, but we can really use them in the Legal Officer Corps as well. So I'd love to get a phone call about this person when they join. Second, I'll say, it says she was born in South Africa. That could mean that she is not an American citizen. And so if you welcome a new member and notice that Ms. McGowan doesn't have rank here yet, so maybe this is a conversation with a brand new member, Non-citizens can join Civil Air Patrol, but a letter has to go up through in our case, the Mid-Atlantic Region Commander to get approval in order to do that. So you'd want to be realistic with her about the fact that we've got a couple of extra obstacles, but let's try to figure those out together. We're willing to do that work with you and hope you'll be patient with us. She mentioned connections to the local Air Force Base. Cadet programs may be a really good place to plug in someone who's good at setting up orientation rides with Air Force vehicles and so forth. A private pilot certificate suggests we ought to get her in the airplane, do some mission scanner training, and perhaps we have ways through Civil Air Patrol resources to help her get current again and enter an operations track. Again, her photography interest and her website interest sounds like the best public affairs officer your squadron will recruit for some time to come. Again, I hate to say it again, but I think it's really important. There's no wrong answer. What's important is that we welcome a member, give them realistic expectations, and try to help them see how progress in CAP can happen. I'm happy to take some questions and answers in the chat box below. I do want to say that I think education and training can sometimes seem like a service discipline in Civil Air Patrol. Do you know that phrase? It can sometimes seem like not the point of our Civil Air Patrol work, but rather something we do in order to enable the important work. I don't think that's right. I think education and training is a key reason that we are all together. If you ask anybody in the military, special operations, an administrative officer, an XO, anyone anywhere in the military, they will tell you that training is their job. Serving in the military may be a calling. Fighting on behalf of the country may be their mission, but training is their job. Being ready for whatever we're going to do in our Civil Air Patrol missions is our job as volunteers. And so education and training is not a service discipline, right? It's in fact perhaps the most important part of leaders' jobs inside the organization. If I think about what's made my Civil Air Patrol service really important to me, many of my favorite moments have come about because I was persistent, I asked questions, and I showed up to do whatever work I could. Early on, I was a little concerned about the fact that because I didn't quite have my private pilot certificate finished yet, I had my private pilot certificate, but I didn't have my instrument rating yet. Perhaps I shouldn't try to learn how to be CAP aircrew because I didn't want to distract from the work I was doing on my instrument rating. But instead, I went ahead and started because I have a hard time saying no anyway. The tall picture over on the left of this slide is from a mission that I did very early on to help clear the North Carolina coast ahead of a hurricane that was coming through. I sat in the back of the plane, took a whole bunch of pictures before we had airborne photography. And so in addition to seeing some of the coolest sights in North Carolina, that's the Body Island Lighthouse there, I also got to do a really important mission. It's ironic to me that I've been in CAP more than 10 years, and one of my proudest moments continues to be in my first year of service. The picture up at the top is with the Judge Advocate General of the United States Air Force, General Jeffrey Rockwell, who I got to meet because I was arranging a legal officer college, and I pestered his staff until they said that he would come and be at the college for us. These are lessons, I hope, about persistence, asking questions, being willing to step up. That's the opportunity that education and training gives us. And as leaders, that's the mechanism through which we can help create some really extraordinary opportunities for the airmen we have the opportunity to serve with. It's been a great pleasure to be part of this wing conference. I'm always happy to kind of show up in the North Carolina wing, even if it's virtually, and I really appreciate your time. The video is going to end, but the session didn't. Don't go away. I'm going to be in the chat window here, happy to take questions with you. And if by chance we don't have a chance to get to your question today, know that I'm not going anywhere. You can always reach me at mtphillips, 2 L's in Phillips, at cap.gov. Or actually, you can find me in the North Carolina Wing Teams account, Outlook account, just by typing in my name, Matthew Phillips. Happy to take emails, happy to answer questions. And I am so looking forward to next year when hopefully we will have ended the longest mission in Civil Air Patrol's history because COVID is past, or at least well controlled. And as a special advantage, we'll all be able to meet together at a banquet, enjoy some good food together and some fellowship. I look forward to seeing all of you, my favorite people in North Carolina Wing, and shaking hands and talking about the great work we're doing together. Thank you for your service. Semper Vigilant.